Hey, Redcasters, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Go Big Red.
You know, we snapped it 78 times. We made them tackle us 64 times. So, you know, that's getting us into the right runs. I thought Emmett ran the ball very hard and very well. And then Dylan with his completion percentage, putting the thing in play and making them tackle us. They did a good job of tackling us.
I was telling the team that I feel like this team is built to put a banner on the wall, not a name. And I think sometimes we get obsessed with being an All-American or the individual accolades instead of the goal is to win a national championship.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast, the Husker Fan Sports Show.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast. I'm your host, Honky, and I'm with Redcast Rob.
Well, as I sit here Tuesday following a Thursday night win in Kansas City, Ohio, against Cincinnati in Ohio, my brain is still mush. I still can't find my voice because, as anyone who knows me knows, I just don't know how to shut up.
That's very true. My voice was gone by halftime of that game, but I don't think I was alone there, Husker Nation. We were loud and proud out there at Arrowhead. Also with Redcast Abby.
I just would like to say I welcome all Swifties to college sports fandom, and I hope they maintain their amazing sense of humor all season long because it is lovely.
You know, something tells me that there's something behind that, Abby. I don't know.
I don't know what you mean. They take jokes so well.
We might get flagged here. Who knows?
Sorry.
And I'm with Redcast Boomer.
Well, I'd just like to remind our usual listeners, Kalen DeBeer and Bill Belichick, I do have some U-Haul coupons if you want to start taking advantage of those now after week one. So.
Yeah, well, that's appropriate here. There was a week one of college football is in the books. Week two of college volleyball, at least for Nebraska, is as well. And another successful weekend for Husker athletics. In fact, across the board, I think I saw a tweet from Troy Dannon where we hadn't lost a game yet in any of the fall sports. So that's a darn good start to we're already into September and we haven't lost a game yet. So let's hope that we can keep that kind of streak going. The Huskers, the football team, did pull off the 20-17 victory to go 1-0 on the season, and we should never take 1-0 for lightly here. We've seen this on the Redcast enough times over the last 10 years that we've done this that we haven't finished the first week in the victory column, and so having that done here, I mean, we can critique a lot of things, but it's always easier to critique a win than it is a loss. So not too shabby there. But before we get into everything here, I'll kind of go around the room. Rob, I was obviously spending the weekend with you there in Kansas City. We'll talk a little bit more about what the scene was like there. But just in general, what were your thoughts of the last week of Husker sports?
Pretty incredible between volleyball, that reverse sweep of Kentucky over the weekend, just being at the game, Husker Nation showing out. I mean, there was no way for me to describe it to anybody who wasn't there, what it was like going to that game. It really was a Husker home game, but I have been to a lot of sporting events in my lifetime. I've been to World Series. I have been to Stanley Cup finals. I have been to NBA finals. I have been to the Super Bowl. I've never been to a sporting event as loud as that was. It was absolutely just roaring the entire time. My ears were ringing like I had just been standing in front of the speakers at a concert. Husker Nation just showed up and showed out for that game. And, a big reason for that win, no matter what anybody wants to say, was that crowd because of some of the, third down penalties that we had and the false starts that we helped create. Oh my God, just so much sports happiness right now. I'm not quite sure how to handle it as a Husker fan, quite frankly.
Well, Boomer, how did you handle it? You watched it from home this weekend. What were your thoughts of the weekend overall?
Yeah, overall, watching from the comfort of home in my basement, so that was okay. Basically kind of echo what Rob said. First off, just volleyball just even when he thought they were having their worst game of the season and things were falling apart in the game, they turn around and, prove what they can do. So I'm sure we'll break that down more later too. And then just, watching the game on TV, you just saw the atmosphere that it had in Kansas City. I mean, it's basically being presented like a bowl game, essentially. I mean, just the amount of fans that were there and the noise that, I'm sure it was even louder in person, but it came across well on TV. And like Rob said, how many false starts did Cincinnati have that probably killed drives? It was at least 4, I think.
They had 4, and I think 3 of them led to punts. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And, even their coach mentioned, just kind of how different that atmosphere was playing it at, quote unquote, neutral Kansas City. And, he kind of pondered what effect that had on the game. And, like we talked about, when week 1 games, it's all these little things that, every team makes mistakes, and it's just which team is going to be able to take advantage of the mistakes the other team makes, or who can generate more mistakes on the opposing team. And that's just part of that atmosphere, is generating mistakes that Cincinnati just made, and then they couldn't overcome it in the end. So, yeah, salute yourself, Husker fans, for that appearance.
Yeah, absolutely. And Abby, you're the true road warrior of the bunch here. You made it both to Kansas City and to Nashville. We're going to talk about Kansas City, but Nashville should not be lost in this either. There was another takeover of a large metro area by Husker Nation this weekend, and the volleyball team and Husker Nation did that down there in Nashville.
Yeah, it was. It was exactly like Kansas City. I mean, it was. I don't know if you have this one, but if you don't follow Lincoln, he took a picture before the game started, and it was a sea of red, which is not surprising. Anywhere Nebraska volleyball goes, there's a sea of red. But I think there's a clip that we have where Danny talks about. I mean, we want to talk about the impact that we had on the football game and those false starts. We got a point because of our fans in volleyball, which that's so much harder to do in volleyball. And so that's us being there, us being alert and ready. And it was amazing. It was really cool. And a lot of them stayed through the whole, all 3 matches to support. A lot of them cheered for Purdue and Illinois. And that was really cool to see kind of that support for the Big Ten and just really good volleyball in general. So it's a good weekend. Good. A lot of people I think did both trips, and that I don't necessarily recommend it. We're all very tired right now, but yeah, I know they were even saying in the Lipscomb game, which was the day after the football game, that there were a ton of people who had made that drive over from Kansas City. So there were bigger road warriors than me, but that's very, very impressive. And I love that about our fans.
It's an easy drive from KC to Nashville. Everyone does it, right?
It's a 9-hour drive. It's no big deal.
No big deal at all. Well, we're going to get into all those things, but before we do, let's start with tweets of the week. And the very first one here, I just love this one. It was Lee Corso's last game here, if you hadn't heard. And so the sign of the year, maybe the decade, from Steve Hellwagen here. It was wish it was Dez's last game instead. And thought that it had a little bit of humor there at the expense of Desmond Howard. Boomer, I'll start with you here. We should acknowledge here, it is the end of an era with Lee Corso. Some people might say it could have been a few years ago that it could have happened, but it happened now here the first week here, and he picked almost across the board all the big games. He picked Alabama to lose. He picked Ohio State, the last headgear, to win, and then he picked his alma mater, Florida State, to beat Alabama. It's a good way to go out.
Yeah, it's almost like it was scripted or something. But either way, but we can acknowledge Lee Corso. He, like you said, he probably could have retired a few years ago. Might have been best for him, but he went out when he wanted to, and he has been part of the game. Love him or hate him, he was always entertaining, if nothing else, those mornings. And it is sad to see him go. He's been a fixture for so long. Just expecting to see him on TV in the mornings and shoving pencils at people, and everyone knows not so fast, my friends. So it's part of the fixture and fun of college football and sports.
Yep. Yeah, it was one of the few things I would watch game day for, right before the kickoff of the 11 a.m. games. I would watch his headgear thing, and they'd go through the picks. Anyone else have any good feelings or feelings towards the end of the Corso era?
I want to say not only was he 4-0 in his picks, but I don't know if you saw the stat. Every team he coached for won that day.
Oh, geez.
So it's I played for or coached for, I think it was. So Florida State won, Indiana won, Navy won. It was just what a day. What a day for Lee. way to go.
Well, what a day for college football too, and it leads us perfectly into the second tweet here. This is from Peter Burns, and for the folks on the broadcast here, we have not been huge SEC fans. Let's just put it that way. And they had a rough day. Texas going into Ohio State and losing, and Alabama getting beat around pretty good by Florida State. Here's Peter Burns at ESPN. He says, it used to be when Alabama got off the bus, you'd feel dread. Now when Alabama gets off the bus, you feel opportunity. The mental edge Bama used to have is gone. The question now is how quickly Kalen DeBoer can fix that. I love how quickly all of a sudden this is just, Bama's just apparently over, dynasty's done. Look, we've been saying this for years, long before Saban ever left Bama, long before we knew NIL was going to be here or the portal. We've been saying it since the first year of the show, whoever is going to be replacing Saban, that's a tough job. I mean, people, they don't get it, how hard it is to replace a legend. And people will say, well, Bama has all the advantages. They're in the best recruiting place in the country. I always say go back 20 years, go back to the mid 2000s, and the best teams in the country were Florida, USC, and Texas. And they're in the recruiting hotbeds. But when you lose Pete Carroll and when you lose Urban Meyer and eventually with Mac Brown, when you lose those guys, it can take years to and still not replace them all. None of those programs are back necessarily to where they were when they were winning titles. And so Texas maybe is the closest right now. So the point is that, yeah, Alabama's going to take a step back. Now, the question I have here, and I'll start with you, Boomer here, but the question is how quickly do Bama fans just get rid of him? Now do we get rid of DeBoer? And now we're getting into that mix of firing and coaches left and right.
Yeah, a lot of it I think is going to depend on. First off, I think his buyout's $70 million. That's a steep number. So unless he can finagle his way, or unless they can finagle in some kind of agreement where he takes less than that, I mean, I just don't even know if any program has $70 million to fire a coach, in their second season. Granted, it would also depend on what happens the rest of the year. I mean, their schedule, isn't super easy. I mean, they even play Wisconsin, who, heck, Wisconsin might be able to beat them at this point, the way they looked that first week. But, I think they play Georgia in the regular season. They have LSU, Auburn looked decent, start the year. So Tennessee is on their schedule. So South Carolina, Oklahoma. So it could be a rough year for him. I mean, you could easily say 4 or 5 losses right there. And when's the last time Alabama had a 4 or 5 loss season? I mean,
it'd be the first year of Saban.
First year of Saban. Yeah. I mean, it's been that long. Yeah.
I think part of this, it also goes back to, and I'm going to just put the third tweet here, and this has to deal with, we're trying to judge if a team has a good schedule or not. Can they win all these games or not? We don't know anything about these teams yet. And so Charlie Collier here on Twitter, he says the AP poll is broken. Voters just move teams up and down from the previous week's poll rather than completely re-ranking teams each week. The poll should be pretty volatile, especially early in the year. This is what a week 2 AP poll should look like. And he has LSU, Ohio State, Miami, Georgia, Penn State, Florida State, Auburn, Iowa State, Texas, and Tennessee as his top 10. The point being that what if Florida State's really good? We overreact to say Alabama's just hosed and they're terrible, and they just lost a game on the road in Tallahassee against a team that maybe is a pretty good team. I don't know. Abby, I'll kind of start with you here. Like when you look at the poll, and this applies to any sport, but I guess with football here, I mean, do we base so much off of preseason polls? Do we base so much off of that narrative that gets created in August? And then to Boomer's point, well, geez, now will Alabama win again because they have to play South Carolina and all these other teams are ranked in these polls?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous for anybody to say that the polls don't matter or that they don't mean anything preseason, because they do. They create an inherent bias. And it's just like you said, like Alabama beats an unranked Florida State. Well, okay, they're unranked now, but that doesn't mean they're going to be unranked. That's why you can't decide like what a good season is until the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know that we barely beat Cincinnati. If Cincinnati wins the Big 12, that looks like a much better win, right? So I just think like they're dumb. I don't believe in preseason polls. I don't think we should get any polls until like, I don't know, well into conference play. I don't know, but I don't think they serve a purpose other than just to like confirm biases.
Yeah, I mean,
form a narrative.
Yeah, they create the narrative there, and in so many ways it's incorrect. I mean, you think about Florida State a year ago; they were top 10 in the country going into it, and they lose out there in Ireland. Nebraska loses out in Ireland to Northwestern, and Northwestern goes on to go 0-11 after that. I mean, from one game to the next, you have to wait a little while, and that's one of the reasons. One of the things I actually think they hit on right with the playoff poll is that it doesn't come out until October after you've had a good 5, 6, 7 games of the season under your belt. But, here, Rob, I'll show you this one here, the next tweet. This one's from Danny Cannell. And Danny likes to get under the SEC fans. He likes to rib them a little bit, and I always appreciate that. But he said, week 1's in the books. Here's my resume-based Danny Cannell top 12. He goes, LSU's 1, Ohio State 2, Miami 3, FSU 4, Auburn 5, South Carolina 6, Georgia Tech 7, Tennessee 8, Iowa State 9, South Florida, who beat up on Boise State, number 10. And look who he has number 11, Nebraska, and number 12, Utah. So number 1, something that I'm looking throughout here, I don't see any teams that has a loss. Do you? I mean, there's no Texas, there's no Alabama in there.
No,
I mean, this is all winners from week 1.
And I think a majority of those teams also played Power 4 opponents.
Yep.
So, I see what you did there, Danny. And I agree with that 100%. It frustrates me to no end, seeing like fans are going to fan, you know what I mean? You got guys like going like, oh my God, we're the greatest team in the world. We won 75-7. And you're like, dude, you played Montana State. Like, you know what I mean? Like, congratulations running up the scoreboard on an FCS opponent that won the Big Sky Conference last year, going 8-0. Like, congratulations on beating a team that beat the likes of University of Northern Colorado. I mean, it's seriously ridiculous. It's like, and a reason, again, I support your sentiment 100%, Abby, in that it just forms a narrative, and it should be at least after week 4. When you've played at least 1 Power 4 or 2 Power 4 opponents, see where your record's at, then, see how those teams look at that point, and then come talk to me. I mean, it's not easy to go in week 1 like Nebraska did and play Cincinnati. Even though it was like a home game, it's still, we're testing out a new offense. There's a lot of things to work on. Yeah, we came out on the winning end. But it's like, it's still both teams coming out with, Cincinnati has a very formidable defense. So regardless of whatever my Kool-Aid predictions were last week, I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And one of the things too, that I'm sorry, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because in regards to the Alabama thing and about coming off the bus, I remember the days when people used to say that about Nebraska. Same thing for those 90s teams. And what if now we're starting to see a reversal of fortunes again with the blue blood, where maybe they go 10, 20 years with a bunch of failure, and Nebraska just never loses again? I mean, is it going to be the Alabama should no longer be a blue blood, narrative? Regardless. So, that's just, it just fits into like a weird thing where every single year you get all of these teams that can come out here and show you what you have in week 1. And are you going to do it against an FCS team, or are you going to do it against, or even a Division II team? I think one team did. And then, or against a formidable opponent in Power 4, and with this new format, we may not see this a whole lot, but hopefully we do.
Yeah. The competition will change, and playing, Power 4 teams, that matters. And we've seen that in volleyball here. Nebraska has played 3, not just Power 4 teams, but 3 powerhouse teams in Kentucky and Pitt and Stanford so far. We have the next tweet is from Sarah Kate 82. And my reaction is that this is literally the sign of a good volleyball team. You get down, but not out. Only the best teams can climb out of a hole like that and keep focused. This will serve us well throughout the year, I hope. Abby, you were there for the Kentucky game. We're the reverse sweep. We're down 0-2, and we come back and win it 3-2. There were coaches changes made. The libero gets switched out. Talk a little bit about what you think that game means.
I think Sarah hits it on the head. It was such a telling game, and it reminds me, I'm trying to think of like where it fits kind of in last year, the last few years, we've had games that have pushed us, right? And it's typically we've come out on the losing side of it. So I think of like Wisconsin 2 years ago where we lost at Wisconsin near the end of the season. I think about Penn State where we lost at Penn State, and you think about SMU where, you know, we learned a lot from those games, but we came out on the wrong end of it. I think it was really important for this team to have been able to flip that switch earlier in the game. And just as a reminder, like set 3 was not like a blowout set. It was still like we could lose this at any time. So I think them like being able to flip that faster and actually be able to dial in focus with those changes and not kind of lose the momentum, or, you know, you never know when players get switched out, how mentally they might react. So I think that was just a really good sign that this is going to be a team that will bounce back from adversity, maybe a little bit faster and a little bit better than we have in the past. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, bounce back from adversity and also bounce back from Harper Murray just keeps going at people's faces. You know, I would not want to stand in front of one of her shots, man. She just,
you don't want to be on the same court as her when she's hitting. And I remember I told Dustin when we were there, I was like, I don't know if you remember, like when we played Pitt and she hit that girl in the face, she walked over to the other side of the court and was just like, oh, hey, I'm really sorry. She was mad. Like she was angry during this Kentucky game. She was not, I don't want to say she was not nice. She did kind of do the like, oh, hey, I hope you're okay kind of thing. But she'd hit that ball and just and come in. It was not as quick of a reaction. And that was the competitor. She was like, this is what I need to do. I'm going to take this game over. She was very kind. There was never an unkind moment. I don't want to say that, but like it was so different in that game against Kentucky than it was against Pitt. And it's what we needed. Like, you know what? Keep going. Hit him in the face. If you have to hit it, if it gets us points, like it's a game, we know what we're doing. They can put their hands up.
Is there an etiquette there, Abby?
But, yeah.
Is there an etiquette there on that? I mean, I've
You
always
should
wondered,
check
like,
in. Like typically you don't go across to the other side of the net, but you will usually walk like to the net just to like make sure they're okay. You know, you do the like, hey, sorry, not intentional, because it never is intentional. Like we joke about her going at people's faces, but you never intentionally go to like hit somebody in the face. She was just trying to hit it as hard as she could. Yeah, that's it. And she did that, and Ray's did that, and other players did it. This was not a mean and nasty thing. It was just, it was so funny to watch the difference, because in those, you could kind of feel in that Pitt game, they felt in control. You could tell they were just like, okay, well, you know, our backs are against the wall. We have to go all out in this one. So it's a little different post hit. But I don't, you know, it was fun. I mean, it was, and every time, like if you haven't gone, and I don't mean to harp on this, if you've never gone to a volleyball game, please go, because it was the sound of them hitting the ball. They hit that ball so hard. And if you've never seen it, you've only seen it on TV, you cannot comprehend how hard those girls are hitting those balls. And every time we were up in the press box, just like, ooh, wow. Like they were both sides so heavy, so intense. And it's great. So again, that's my plug to go to a volleyball game if you get the chance to. But
even if it's a local team, you know, even if it's just D1 volleyball,
go support any team.
Yeah. And as you're talking about Harper Murray hitting the girl in the face, I turned around here. I'm watching UNC play Colorado State right now in set 5. And one of the UNC players hit a ball so hard into the corner, it took out the line judge or the line ref. It took him out, like hit him in the face, knocked him over. So yeah, it's pretty fun, man. It's I went to one on Friday night. Washington played out here, and yeah, you're right, Abby. It's like you don't realize like exactly how athletic and how hard these girls hit the ball until you're there. And Nebraska hits it 10 times harder than just about anybody else in the nation, which is insane to think about.
Well, we have a couple more tweets to go, but I'm going to switch it over to Husker Nation taking over KC and Nashville. And I think a good start with that here is it's from Caleb Henry. And he said Cincinnati fans were losing their minds about the travel distance for a football game in Kansas City. Maybe they should have turned on ABC to see Nebraska overrun Nashville too even with Kentucky being closer, which is an excellent point right there. Nebraska played Kentucky in Nashville and had the place overrun. So I don't know what Cincinnati's excuse is other than they simply don't have the fan base that Nebraska has, and that shouldn't be a shock to anyone. But they got 75% of the take, and from one of the takes that I saw, that I think that's about $6 million. So Cincinnati, it's a win for them, even if it's an L in the column, the win-loss column. It's a win for them in terms of the dollars that they made off of that. But again, Husker Nation, man, that is just so impressive what they did, and I think Caleb really hits it well there. Another one here. Let me switch over to this. This is from Neil Meyer, and he says Brandon Sorsby, quarterback for Cincinnati on Thursday night, as 72,884 fans looked on at Arrowhead Stadium. That was probably the loudest environment I have played in throughout my career. And I would say that probably right there explains exactly why they moved that game from Nippert Stadium to Arrowhead. Was 72,884 fans, and 95% of them wearing red. Husker Nation, again, you showed up so proud. This is a good chance, I think, for us to kind of just talk about the weekend a little bit. Rob, you and I had a chance to tailgate the night before. On Wednesday night, we were in the Plaza area and went to a Husker bar, and there were Husker fans all over the place Wednesday night. And then we've countless, articles and stories about the traffic jam that was Kansas City to Omaha, or Omaha to Kansas City, that whole Thursday morning, backed up for hours. Abby, you were coming from the east. Any issues there or nothing?
No.
That was fine coming from the east.
We were joking with my parents. Like, there was one time that we came to a stop on the interstate, and they came down from Omaha, and they were just like, "Oh, really? One time?" It's like, "Oh, right." They were an hour, and I think they were almost 2 hours delayed because of traffic. Mm-hmm. So I was like, "Sorry."
Yeah, Hunky and I didn't hit any traffic in our Uber, and then the only time we just waited 2 hours to catch an Uber home.
It's their whole rideshare area at Arrowhead is just ridiculous.
Terrible.
Yeah, I mean, like embarrassingly bad. How poorly it's set up. Yeah, we didn't get out of there until like 1:30. Didn't get home till 2. It was pretty ridiculous.
We paid some gypsy cab to take us home.
We did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
He drove right past my hotel and he locked the door so I couldn't get out. And
he would have charged us. He was going to charge us like another $35 to drop Rob off
for me to get out of the car. I tried to get out at one of the lights and he locked the door so I couldn't get out, like from the front, like the child lock.
You're kind of lucky you got back, really. I mean, sounding,
it kind of is. Yeah, Husker Nation, you showed up. Redcast Nation, I love all the comments and everything right now. Keep them coming. We love interacting with you during these live shows, so please keep the comments coming, and we'll post what we can here. Abby, you were the Redcast on the ground there in Nashville. Talk a little bit about what the Nashville experience was like.
It was great. I mean, it was better traffic wise, crowd wise, all of that than Kansas City. I get the feeling that the people down near Broadway or on Broadway handle crowds a little bit better. They were everything was really well done, and I mean, they just everything was great, and like I said, so many Nebraska fans. Even, and you said compared. I mean, Caleb Henry even talked about Kentucky, but Tennessee is right there. It was in Nashville, so even Vanderbilt, there was just no denying that we took over. But it was great. It was loud as always, and it was, exciting. You could just every point and every loss, all of that just had everybody in the crowd really riled up the whole time, all 2 hours of that game.
Marty Honky's asking exactly how loud was the Husker crowd. Well, Marty, let me tell you. Remember that Beatles concert you went back to in 1968? Yeah, 10 times.
Well, here, let me play how loud it was, and this never does its justice. But this is the Huskers. This goes back to Kansas City. This is Nebraska coming onto the field, and Travis Kelce's right behind us. like literally Kelsey, and then Taylor Swift. She was right behind us as well. Now the show's probably gonna get flagged. We said her name, but and then yeah, we had Mahomes and Brittany Mahomes. They were all we could throw a football to them. They were that close. It was an interesting way to watch a football game.
Yeah, to say the least. That was it was weird. Like people watching the game, and every time I'm trying to watch the game, and every time I like look down at the field, people are looking over our shoulders from 10 rows below us. So you like it's like you're kind of forced to look over and see what they're looking at. And of course, they're standing there the whole game, and he's standing behind there every time Cincinnati made a play. And then at one point, they scored a touchdown there at the end, right, to make it 17-20. And you can hear Kelsey in the background yelling, "It's over, it's over." And I'm thinking, yeah, it is, but not the way you think it's going to be over there, buddy. Like
it was for him.
Yes,
So I have a question, though. I mean, we've heard that Dannon might be looking into making this either a regular or semi-regular journeys to Arrowhead. Is that something you guys would be in favor of going forward?
He clarified it very clearly, though, as long as you have 7 home games at Memorial Stadium. This isn't replacing. Yeah, and actually in 2027, I believe we have a season where we have 8 home games.
Yes, we've got a couple of those coming up.
I think, and in a case like that, I could see where you might try to schedule like a season opening game there, and one where if you can do something to make the game more special than what it would be if it was at Memorial Stadium. What I mean by that is if we're going to play Akron in Memorial Stadium on Saturday at 2:30, or we can play Akron on Thursday night, in the opening weekend, and you get to play it on ESPN and have that kind of, then there's an advantage to us. But again, it's not to replace a Memorial Stadium game. At least if you have to have 7 home games minimum. So can they do it again? Yeah, I could see it. There's an unbelievable fan base down there in Kansas City, the largest metro outside of Nebraska for a Nebraska alumni is Kansas City. And so, yeah, I mean, I could absolutely see them doing something similar again, but it's just got to be the right fit. This was the right fit. Cincinnati has 8 home games this year. So this is one of their home games. They chose not to play in Nippert. Now, I don't know how important 7 home games are to Cincinnati and Nippert. That's their business. But I'm just saying, Nebraska, I can tell you, Memorial Stadium, they want to have 7 games there. It's a good question, though, Boomer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. It's like close. I mean, obviously for me, it's close. It's a lot closer than going to Lincoln, which is, a benefit. But it's a fun environment. Why not? To me, it's so similar to like Rhule doing podcasts and going on the Pat McCaffrey show, where it's like, if it's gonna bring good attention, and it's think about like recruiting and being like, so you want to play in an NFL stadium? Great, we can do that. Like, to me, if done right, like Honky said, like as long as we don't lose out on a home game, it's great. It was such a fun environment, and I think that's what kids want to do. Like, who doesn't want to go play in an NFL stadium?
And I think, Boomer, I know one of the points that you get at here, and I am 100% in agreement with you. I don't want to see Nebraska, Oklahoma being played at Arrowhead when you have Memorial Stadium in Lincoln and Gaylord Family Stadium there in Oklahoma. Like I never liked it when LSU and Wisconsin had a home and away, and one was played at the Superdome and the other one was played at Lambeau Field. That's like, why do you have Death Valley and Camp Randall? Why, I don't want to take games off of campuses. So these really do, to me, need to be kind of one-off things. This isn't a 7 times a year we're going to go down to Arrowhead because we can get 76,000 in there. We can, but we can do that also in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we have a stadium that is a cathedral of college football right down there at 10th and Vine. So, anyways, but it was an amazing. I love what it showed what Husker Nation can do. The beauty of this was we filled the stadium up by ourselves. This was not. We don't need the assistance of Cincinnati to fill up Arrowhead. And I think that's a really impressive feat there. There's not a lot of schools out there, a lot of fan bases, especially one that's had the level of success that we've had the last 10 years. There's not a lot of fan bases that could pull off what Nebraska just did. Let's move on here and let's get to some courtside cooking. And again, we started off talking about we're 4-0 on the season. We've beaten 3 of the top 10 teams in the country in Stanford and Pitt and Kentucky. We've done it in different ways. We've swept Stanford. We've had a 3-1 win over Pitt, and now we've had a reverse sweep over Kentucky with Lipscomb kind of in between there. You called it last week, by the way, Abby. I mentioned a couple of the players that hadn't. Skylar Pierce hadn't played much, and you're like, well, watch Lipscomb, and she came out there and had a great night there. So we've had kind of 4 different games, different styles and types of games. Where it's very early in the season so far, but I mean, where do you see us kind of at right now after game 4?
It's I think the Kool-Aid tells me we're never losing. It's hard, and I say that and I joke, but it's hard to see on our schedule like who might beat us. Now I say that, and I'm sure Penn State didn't think they were going to lose to Arizona State or TCU. So I don't want to like take that away from anybody because it's not always, I think, let me see if I can find it. Terry Pettit had a great thing where he said volleyball is not like a stock car race where if one team has the bigger engine, they're always going to win. The most meaningful matches are against an opponent who has the talent and the coaching expertise to beat you on any given day. So coaches understand this, players understand this, fans should consider this perspective. Competition is the opportunity to be courageous. So I think we're going to get challenged again. This is not the last time that we're going to get challenged by a team. Like I said earlier, we've shown grit, we've shown in-game grit, and that's something that I think we haven't always seen from our teams before. So I feel good. I mean, I just feel really good about this season. I think we've seen 2 of the hardest servers, two of the people with the nastiest serves in NCAA volleyball, and we have somehow survived both of them. So from that, I just think like we're in a good place. I think we're going to do really well. Lincoln predicted that the Big Ten race would be over well before Penn State comes to Nebraska at the end of the season. And it's starting to maybe feel like he kind of knows what he's talking about. So I feel good. I mean, I think we'll close our non-con strong and then just dig into Big Ten volleyball.
Well, I'll get to the non-con. I'll put the schedule back up here in a second. But, Rob, you mentioned going to a volleyball game last weekend. Washington of the Big Ten came to Greeley and played at Northern Colorado and lost.
Yeah.
I guess
in a reverse sweep too, of all things.
Yeah. Well, we've talked so much in football about the SEC, and is the SEC taking a step back? Are they still the dominant conference? The Big Ten in volleyball has been that. And between Washington, they're losing. Between Penn State now losing to TCU and to Arizona State, and there's some other Ohio State. I think they winless right now. This is
they're 0-2. Yeah,
they're 0-2. So
Wisconsin just got swept by Texas.
So in a strange way, all of a sudden the advantage of being in the Big Ten, where you're going to get some kind of credit for that, or you'll get elevated a spot or 2 when it comes to postseason, selections and stuff. I'm not sure if that carries over. Maybe the Big Ten just has that reputation, that narrative will stick with it. But at the very least, I mean, I think it's showing that the conference early on here, at least this is early, it's showing that Nebraska's playing really well, and we're a step above everyone else right now. Fair?
Yeah. It's I mean, there's nothing to argue there. I will say that UNC, I'm pretty sure they did win their the Big Sky Conference last year, regular season. So I mean, let's not.
Well, that's a start.
I think what it's really showing, honestly, is that there is true parity, and it's becoming more like we're getting more parity in volleyball. There used to only be a couple teams that, and maybe still are only maybe a handful of teams that you're like, yeah, this team could compete for a national championship. But I think what we're starting to see is some of that spread out amongst others. So like getting Arizona State as a top 10 team now. SMU is right in there as a top. I mean, they're 11, but they're still right there. A&M, like these teams that maybe historically haven't always been really powerful teams. Louisville is still up at number 3, Kentucky at number 4, right? So you're just seeing that there's more teams that are really good. And does that come at the expense of the Big Ten? Maybe a little bit, or also maybe Penn State had a bad weekend. Maybe Wisconsin just had a bad game. Like, it's hard. It's similar to our preseason football talk. Like, it's hard to jump to major conclusions this early in the season. You'll kind of want to see how these teams bounce back. Like, I mean, Nebraska lost to SMU fairly early last year, and it didn't, it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt the Big Ten. We all, as a conference, was still very strong. So
yeah,
I do think that probably the Big Ten is not quite as dominant as they have been in the past, across the board. I still think it's a really strong conference for volleyball. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon, even if there's just maybe some different teams that rise and fall out of it.
Yeah.
Do you think we would have to win the conference to be one of the top 4 seeds?
Nebraska?
Yes. Granted, the season has to play out, but
yeah, I don't know. Honestly, we schedule so hard in the out of conference that we get some benefit there. I
was going to say a win over.
Yes, I think we'll have to win the conference. I think whoever wins the Big Ten will get one of those 1 seeds.
I mean, a win over Kentucky goes a long ways too, because Kentucky, it might come down to Nebraska and Kentucky for number 4. So to Abby's point there, these early wins of Pitt or Stanford, I mean, these could be top 4 seeds themselves. And if it's coming down to us, whether we've won our conference or not,
yeah.
So
I mean, what are we even really talking about here too about this? Because I'm counting here. I'm looking at top 25 as of yesterday. The Big Ten still has more teams in the top 25 than any conference. I mean, I mean, there's seven teams from the Big Ten in there. There's only 5 from the SEC, which is, and then there's, a splattering of, some Big 12 teams here and there. And,
I think some of this is the same.
Is Stanford ACC now? Is that what they are?
They're ACC. Yes,
which makes all the perfect sense.
I think the difference is you're used to seeing, like, especially kind of over the last few years, you're used to seeing like Wisconsin, Penn State, Nebraska, Minnesota, UCLA. Like, you're used to seeing more of those teams higher up. So yeah, there's a bunch in the top 25, but Penn State's going to drop out of the top 5. They have 2 losses now. They're going to drop out. So you've got 1 team you might get 3 teams in the top 10, or you might get 2 teams in the top 10. And so I think like that's what we mean when we talk about like the conference just like is kind of struggling a little bit. And they're losing to teams that they shouldn't be, or they're struggling against teams that they shouldn't be. I mean, UCLA, last I looked, was losing to Pepperdine. Yeah, it's 2-1 Pepperdine over UCLA.
Like, I mean, here's a question for you, because, in football, they always say the difference between the number, 1 team and number 25 team is significant, but the difference between like the number, 10 team through 25 is basically, you're going to play a 1-score game every time, right? How is that like relative, in theory to, say, college volleyball in regards to like talent separation and are the top 5 teams really that much better than everybody else? I mean, outside of Nebraska and being biased, is that kind of a thing that you see between, like, say, number 25 Dayton and, number 10 Texas A&M?
I think you can tier volleyball a little. I don't know if you would tier it the same, but you can tier volleyball rankings or teams to be pretty similar. I think. And it fluctuates, right? So like, I'm looking at the rankings right now. I haven't seen Louisville play, so I can't I can't speak on them. But I think, like, for example, when the season started, I would have put, at least in the Big Ten, I would have put Nebraska, Penn State, tier 1. There was nobody close to them. Then your tier 2 would have been like a Wisconsin, Minnesota. 3 would have been like Purdue, UCLA, USC, where there are very clear distinctions between those tiers. Within them, there's a lot of flexibility. I think that's probably the same with volleyball, with the portal and NIL and all of that there is going to be a lot of, I think the top 4 teams are the top 4 teams for a reason. And I think that there's a really solid drop off between Kentucky and God, I hate to say that Penn State, there's a solid drop off to Penn State, but I mean, their rankings and their playing kind of shows that. And I would agree, probably as you get further down into the top 25, they're a little more fluid. They're going to mess around. They're going to switch, they'll be closer to one another. So I think in that sense, you can still kind of make that same comparison.
Yeah, because Honky and I went to the Arizona State game in Lincoln Arizona State match, I say, in Lincoln last year, and they obviously were a great team then. I mean, they were really fun to watch. You could see the athleticism, everything. They had one girl that barely came up to the bottom of the net, but could look like she could jump out of the gym, and it was, but the talent level was obvious, the separation
they were
between the two.
I think they were 14th in the country.
They were number 14
Rob,
in the country.
Nebraska swept them, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's that. I'm interested with Nebraska in volleyball from a resource standpoint. We talk about in football facilities and everything. There's no better facilities in college volleyball than what Nebraska has. The resources that Nebraska has are second to none. And I think in a world of parity right now, and you are seeing more volleyball parity, somehow I think Nebraska has the opportunity, at least for the next couple of years. Others will catch up, but I think we can buck the trend a bit with we put more resources into volleyball. We can have a second team that is as good as top 10 teams first team. That's what I'm seeing, and keep players from leaving. NIL, that you can make more, riding the bench probably at Nebraska than you could at some other schools. I don't know how long that advantage can last for, but at least right now, I think it's a real advantage that our blue bloodness and our support for this program, in the face of, to your point, Abby, more parity. There is really more parity. It's a good thing for the sport of volleyball, but Nebraska is looking as dominant almost as they ever have.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think the House settlement, I think, is going to, I don't want to say create more parity, because I don't think it will. I think you're going to start finding which schools are willing to invest in volleyball.
That's exactly right.
And we know Nebraska is, I know just, from what I know, Purdue is investing. There's going to be Big Ten teams that invest, but I think what you're going to find is are schools like Rutgers, Maryland, Iowa. I don't know, schools that historically aren't very good at volleyball. Are they going to invest in volleyball? Are they going to move that money elsewhere? And so in that sense, you're going to find a very clear divide, right, between teams that have the money and the resources. And I think within those teams, then you're going to have another clear tier system. I mean, we don't want to say it. Texas is right up there with us. Sure. Texas is probably another team that we joke about hoarding talent. I mean, we're hoarding talent right now too. So we can't really, but how many people left Texas and were starters and dominant on other teams, right? So in that sense, there's always going to be a handful of teams that not only are investing, but investing big in volleyball. And I don't love it, but I think it will just I think it'll create a big divide, but then within those teams that have invested, you're going to see good parity, if that makes sense. So as a whole, there's going to be a divide, but with teams that have volleyball, it'll continue to kind of spread the wealth a little bit.
Well, let's take
that for a while.
Let's take a look here, Abby, at the next week and a half, 2 weeks of the schedule. We have the Emeritus Players Challenge coming up on Friday, September 5th at 7 p.m. at the Bob Devaney Sports Center. We play Wright State from the great state of Ohio. And then on September 7th, Sunday at 1 p.m., we play Cal from the ACC as well, because that makes a lot of sense, right, Rob? Cal and Stanford.
I'm so confused by that.
Wright State will be on Big Ten Plus, and then the Cal game, 1 o'clock on Sunday, will be on the Big Ten Network. And we follow that up. There's a Husker Invitational with Grand Canyon, Utah, Drake. Let's see, we play Utah. We eventually get to Creighton at Tuesday, September 16th. So that's a couple weeks out. But anyways, let's, I guess, focus on this weekend here. We have Wright State and Cal. Abby, any concerns?
No, I think we're going to see similar to what we saw at Lipscomb, where we'll start all of these games with our, 6 starters, whoever they are. And you'll start to see, you'll get Skylar in again. You'll get Manaya back in again. You'll get, Campbell will probably play more. So those 2 games are another really, really great opportunity for us to get to use that talent that's sitting on our bench, so they don't just leave because they're mad they don't get to play. So that's my guess is this weekend we'll see more of those players come in again, and then getting ready. Utah's ranked. So I doubt it unless, we have it in hand in that third set, we might, but I'd say upcoming games, I'd expect to see a lot more of our younger players come in.
You don't think we gonna see like a loss like out of nowhere like we did last year against the opponent
SMU.
SMU, thank you.
I don't think these teams are as good as SMU. I think we underestimated SMU, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think we went into that game thinking we were going to roll them and not realizing that they were as good as they were. They finished ranked. They're ranked now. They're 11th this season. So, I mean, like they were a very good team and we underestimated them, I think, as a team and as fans. I don't think we'll see that against these other teams. I don't know much of I haven't really watched them, so I can't really tell you much about them, but I don't. And the thing is if we start to get challenged and we have maybe the younger players in, Danny will just switch them out. Like she's already shown she's going to make the switches she needs to make to win. So
that was actually probably the most impressive coaching move that I've seen.
Yeah.
Her. I mean, I know it's early in her career, but to basically go in there and take players out that, basically would never be taken out anywhere else. She sat him down. She made some changes, switching out the libero. Like that was
everybody played better afterwards.
That was.
I want to
awesome.
play. Yeah, I think that's a great point there. I want to play a clip here of the mentality that went into that third, fourth, and fifth set.
Olivia, what was kind of the mindset of the team? You guys, I know it's really early on, but this is really the first time you've really been pushed. It feels like this season. So what's kind of the mentality of the team going into those third, fourth, and fifth sets?
Yeah, well, the first two sets, we knew this was not our best game, and we just kept saying, like, we're not done, keep pushing, we know we can do better, and it's all, like, on our side. They're not doing anything special, they're a great team, but it was all, like, us.
I mean, it's a pretty baller statement. I love that where it's, it's not look, it's us, at the end of the day. I mean, we've said that in the football world forever when you're turning the ball over and everything. In this case here, it's not what they're doing. It's us. And sometimes you got to make a little change. I love the fact that DBK, this is the first chance where she really had a chance to make a big move in a game. You're down 0-2 and it worked.
Yeah. They just needed something different, and then that's not to take away from how anybody played. I know a lot of people are going to focus on the libero. That's the most obvious change. It needed to happen. I mean, we were there, we watched it. And then when I rewatched it on TV, I was like, oh, it doesn't look as obvious, but in person, it was like, this has to change. She has to make a change here. And I think, I don't know if we have the clip. I don't know if I sent the clip over or not, but Olivia talked about it of like, sometimes just having a different, like, energy on the court, almost said on the field. Well, like a different energy on the court sometimes can like shift, right? So if everybody's hyped up, which Lainey's great at, and that's what we have come to love from her. But if like everybody's really hyped up in a moment, you need somebody to be like, okay, like to just bring everything back down, and that refocuses things. And I think not just from a playing perspective, from that mentality perspective, it's great that we have that change. Danny has said that she anticipates these changes will happen again. It's just it's the joy and the benefit of having a team, as having a bench as deep as we do. I was worried about it. I've been worried about having 18 players on a team, but you got to see a game where having that depth helped us. We would not have won that game without the depth, not just in the libero position, but switching out Taylor and Terea and getting Sky in there and switching Virginia in. Like there were all these little changes that just impacted the energy on the court, which is great. I love that she was willing to do it. I love that all the players, nobody was mad. Like when they got subbed out, there were no faces. It was, everybody knew that it was for the benefit of the team, and you got to win. And you got to win games if you want to keep playing. You got to have that mentality. So,
yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect segue here. And let's switch over to the football side of things. We've got to win games, and Scarlet Color Glasses here. We won the game. We're 1-0, and this is how you start to build something, right? And you start to build some depth there. We had a lot of young guys play on defense. My gosh, they were rotating too deep across the front seven in the backfield. So getting a lot more players out there, and we beat a Power 4 team. I think, Rob, you mentioned that. when we were talking about the top 12, re-ranking the top 12 and just having teams that beat, top teams. And this was a big victory for Nebraska this week. And I don't want anyone to kind of gloss over it. We knew we needed to get through this game, and now we have the 2 games where we should be beating Akron. We know that. We should be beating Houston Christian. We should be 3-0 now when Michigan comes to town September 20th. But that game was significant in getting it done, winning a one-score game. And there was a great tweet. I think it was James Prush. It was a quote from Bobby Bowden that said, when you're rebuilding a program, first you lose big, then you lose small, then you win small, and then you win big. And, when you think about it in that sense, we knew that we need to win these one-score games. Ad nauseum, we've heard about that. We need to get back to a bowl game. We heard of that ad nauseum. Last year we got there at 6-6, but we knocked it off. Now we need to start winning some of these close games, play good special teams. That's what happened. Boomer, I'll start with you here. We won a close game. We played comparable special teams, and I guess I'm ecstatic by it. I see the same issues that I see some people focus on, but my gosh, we came out with a W.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a running joke, but a win is always better than a loss. I mean, if you don't think so, imagine being a Texas or a Alabama or a North Carolina fan, this week. Just kind of think.
Oh, geez, North Carolina.
So, yeah, I mean, after that dismal performance, I mean, they somehow managed to score fewer points than Belichick's girlfriend's age. So, I mean, that's impressive. But, again, it wasn't the prettiest game, but like we said last week, week 1 games never are. I mean, very few teams are going to look, perfectly sharp right out of the gate. And the game itself, there were some things that, we can nitpick, and that's what, people are going to do. They're going to nitpick anything, win or lose, especially if you lose. But again, just that was a game that Nebraska teams years ago under various coaching regimes would have lost. They would have found a way to blow that in the last, that last drive. And that's something we've always been asking for Husker teams to do, is someone needs to step up and make that play. And this time they finally did it. There were chances they could have lost the game, but they didn't. So this is what you want in those scenarios. You step up, you make a play, you win that game. Now you can move forward. You got a couple of weeks of, pre-purchased victories essentially to scrimmage and practice before you're getting ready for Michigan. So that's exactly what you needed to do. You had to get by Cincinnati, get the W, get to 3-0, which, you should. I mean, nothing's ever a guarantee in life, but if we're not 3-0, then we've got real problems to talk about, at that point. But no, that game's exactly what you wanted. So,
yeah. So Akron doesn't concern you?
If you looked at Akron at all this weekend, they were they're not good. So they they lost to Wyoming 10-0, and that's not in Wyoming.
17.
Yeah, no, it was 10-0. That was an awful game.
Was it really only 10? I thought it was 17.
Yes, it was bad in all aspects, and it wasn't. It was at Akron too, so that home field advantage didn't pay off with their 9,000 fans in attendance. Granted, I don't know how many of those were Wyoming fans visiting, but. Yeah, so they couldn't even blame the altitude in Wyoming, Honky, like you're fond of them. But Akron, I know it's only a week's worth of data, but they're somewhere about 134th in power rankings out of about 130 some NCAA Division I teams. Yeah, they're not good. So I don't worry about them much. Yeah.
Speaking of their stats here's by the numbers powered by Husker Max, and we have the 2025 Nebraska Akron football stats matchup. As we scroll through here, let's look more at Nebraska right now. I think that so on the left column here, rushing offense, we had 110 yards rushing. That ranks us 93rd in the country. Passing offense, 243 yards. That ranks 52nd in the country. Pass efficiency, 142.89, which is 56. Actually, I thought we'd be higher in that efficiency-wise. Dylan completing 78% of his passes. But our total offense, 353 yards a game. That puts us at 81st. Scoring offense, 20 points. That puts us 85th in the country. So offensively, we didn't blow things up. But boy, when you look at Akron, their offense, 89 yards rushing, 139 yards passing. That's 108, 107th, respectively. Pass efficiency, 0, which is 100.
0.0. That's not good. Yeah.
So they are last in the country right now in pass efficiency. Their total offense, my goodness, their total offense was 228 yards. That's 121st. Now, when you look at their pass efficiency, they are last in the country in pass efficiency at 130th. Our pass defense efficiency, 67.18. That puts us 8th in the country. Our pass defense at our pass defense, 69 yards, is 8th in the country. Our pass efficiency defense, 67.18, is 10th in the country. So that is something, especially a John Butler defense. He when he was at Buffalo for the last 5 years in the NFL, they led the NFL in pass defense for like the last 5 years of it. So pass defense, Nebraska came out, looked very good against Cincinnati. I don't envision Akron being able to do a whole heck of a lot through the air on us. Our rush defense, this is hopefully a game where we can kind of get some of that taken care of. We had 202 yards rush defense. I thought Dave, yesterday we did a film session on the game. And if you haven't watched that yet, Redcasters, go over to YouTube and watch the film session. But I thought that Dave brought up a good point with, rush defense. It's kind of, there's a two-part thing to it. I mean, we stopped their running backs really well. Their transfer from Wisconsin stopped them well, but it was the quarterback that really took off on us and got some leaky yards. And there's some things I think we can do schematically differently to prevent that. And plus, I think that was a pretty good quarterback that we played. But regardless, we want to improve on that 202 yards rushing defense. But a couple other stats I did want to highlight here is first one was the time of possession. We had the ball for 39 minutes and 30 seconds against Cincinnati. That's second in the country. And I don't know, maybe sometimes, Abby, when I'm at a game, I don't always catch on to everything happening in real time as easy as if I'm at home and I'm listening to an announcer talking. But did it feel like it in person? Did it feel like we were on the field for 39 minutes and 30 seconds, the offense to you? Or I don't know. That surprised me. It didn't feel that way to me in real time, but maybe that's because I was yelling at the team for giving up so many rushing yards.
No, I would agree. It didn't really occur. It didn't feel like that to me either. But then my dad made a good point at the end of it. He's like, we kind of complained about the defense. It was a little leaky, but how often did we go 3 and out? And it's like, oh yeah, no, we did, didn't we? It's that thing. I'm with you. Like when I'm at the game, sometimes these things are hard to focus on until you go back and rewatch it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was definitely, I'm with you. It did not seem like we had the ball for that long. We looked at the stats afterwards saying, we're just like, what, how? But then I was like, all right, there were a lot of 3 and out. So when we did move the ball, we just, couldn't do anything with it in the red zone, which, PTSD of Purdue all over again. But yeah, I'm with you. At the time, it didn't really feel like it, but then rewatching, it's like, oh yeah, you're right. We did have the ball a lot. We did. Felt like clock management for the most part. Not the worst thing not our worst clock management game, which is also saying a lot.
that is it for the first game. Like Rob, I want to focus on a couple of stats here with you, Rob, that were, I think, kind of a real show of progress for Nebraska in terms of first game taking care of the things that we would have made mistakes at in the past. And so turnover margin we were +2. That's 11th in the country. The fewest penalties. We only had 3. That's 8th in the country. So we had a low penalty game and we didn't turn the ball over. I mean, that shows some discipline. That's coaching. That's a team. That's a mature team coming in the season and not beating themselves, right?
Yeah. And I think Sam McEwen wrote an article yesterday that in the Rhule era, when the Huskers are plus or positive in the turnover margin, they are 7-1. And, I said it the other day and I said it right afterwards. That's really the key stat that matters, because if we're going to win games, we got to be plus in the turnover margin, which sounds really, really cliche. But at the same time, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, I think, is that what them old people say? And time of possession, no turnovers, offensive efficiency. While Holgerson even said, points per, was it?
Yards per point.
Points per yard. Thank you.
Yeah.
It wasn't where he wanted to be, which probably made Dave so happy to hear.
That's Dave's key stat.
That's his key stat right there. The fact that he's so focused on that, we're going to see an improvement. Yeah, I think the next 2 games. I know the spread's 34.5 right now. Nebraska hasn't covered a spread in God knows where. I think it was like the first Trump administration.
Yeah.
But it's I have a feeling that if we have the ability to lay it on this week, we're going to see him lay it on.
Well, Boomer, a couple of things here that I think are good signs. You're our special teams coordinator on the Redcast. One of them, red zone offense. Right now, we're tied for number one in the country with everyone else that was 100%. But basically, we scored 2 touchdowns. That's good. Now we're in there. We made a field goal in the red zone off of a penalty, one of those rare 3 penalties we had in the game. Now, the left tackle Pritchard jumped. It doesn't really matter because even if he didn't jump, we also had an illegal formation. We had 5 guys in the backfield, so it would have been called one way or the other. But we obviously can't be doing that. We can't be jumping. We can't be lining up incorrectly. But we scored a field goal anyways. We were down 3-0 in this game, and our first points were on a 52-yard field goal. I'll get to punts in a second with you, the net punting up here, and why I think the stat's a little flawed. But just in general, let's just talk the kicking game for a second, the field goal game. Well, I guess even the kickoffs too, because that's part of this. Yeah. Kind of give me your assessment there, of the kicking game that we had in week 1 here.
Yeah, well, first thing I just wanted to say from somebody watching the game on TV, the drives did seem long for Nebraska because they were. If you look at our scoring drives, like our first field goal, I think was an 11-play drive. Our second field goal was 16 plays, and we had a TD, or I think our second TD drive was 13 plays. So they were lengthy drives, and a lot of that was just by the nature of what the defense Cincinnati was playing. They were had 3 deep safeties. They were not letting anything go downfield, so we had to just settle for little short passes and short runs. So those drives did seem to take a long time on TV, and a lot of that's commercial breaks every other play, it seems. So there are plenty of those in games nowadays. And the one short drive we had, was a 3-play touchdown drive, and that was off of turnover. That just shows how big those turnovers were to create field position. And
yep.
So I just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, like you said, with kicking and special teams, it was generally positive. There were a few things that were questionable. First off, it's nice to be able to say, hey, we can kick a 50-yard field goal, or at least have a shot at making it. So that's something that's going to be huge going forward, especially in the Big Ten. And, games are going to be close. I don't think we're going to be blowing everybody out in the Big Ten. Maybe we will. Maybe they'll surprise us later. But it's nice to have that in your back pocket where you don't feel you have to go for it if you're on the, 35 or 40 and, it's a long down and distance to make it. You can think you can kick and get 3 points out of it. That's going to be huge going forward, just having that option. Kickoff, the kickoffs were okay, except for that one that was drifting out of bounds. And
did they switch the kickoff guy then?
I didn't see that. Did they change who it was? I don't know if they did. Yeah, I'll have to go back and check. So, so that was, kind of a mixed bag there as far as that goes. You hate to kick a ball out of bounds. That's not what you want to see. The guy was smart enough to catch it and have his foot out of bounds when he did so. So that's, good special teams playing Cincinnati's part there. So, so that was kind of a mixed bag as far as kickoffs goes. And then, did we want to address punting?
And then the net punting here. So right now we're technically 100th in the country with net punting with 36.775 yards a punt. I think we can all agree that that's a very skewed stat there, because what Archie did to kick the ball, I think he had 3 of them that went inside the 20. And I think 2 of them went inside the 10.
Correct.
Including that last punt of the game with 2 minutes left. Like you talk about how it can change the game to have a kicker that can kick a 52-yard field goal. How does it also change the game that we have a guy that can cough and corner you? Because I would say arguably one of the biggest questionable calls I have if I was critiquing the coaches from the game, I thought early in the third quarter when we went for it on 4th down near midfield and didn't get it, I would have preferred on that 4th down not to go for it. I'd have preferred to punt him down to the 5-yard line, because I think we have a guy that can do that now.
Yes. And that we do. I mean, that just shows, the importance of having a good punter like that. And, if those of us that watch AFL, you can definitely tell he's an AFL inspired kicker, just the way he runs, kicks off both feet, and just his technique. So, and that's what we brought a guy in for. That is also going to be a big weapon to have. We make fun of Iowa for, loving their punters as much as they do, but just think of how many games that's won for Iowa over the years, just being able to punt and, get people pinned deep in their own half of the field inside the 10. Now, if we have that as another weapon, in the toolkit to draw on, that's just going to be massive too. And, you know, also want to give a shout out, you know, something else we mentioned, you know, in our show last week. Does anyone know who the long snapper was in this game? If you didn't know who he was beforehand? Nope, never heard his name once. That's exactly what you want out of a long snapper. You should never hear their name called in a game because the only time you hear who the long snapper is if they screw up, and they didn't. So that's exactly what you want.
I wonder how far Archie can kick a punt too. I was thinking about that because most of our punts were from like, you know, reasonable, like outside like the 40, I think it was just outside the 40, maybe the 50. But I wonder like what's going to happen. Like the first time he has to punt the ball from, you know, inside our own 20 or something, right? Like how far can he kick the ball? Because most of those punts were very finessed and placed very well, right? Like what's going to be one when he has to lay down the boom? I'm always curious. Yeah. Hopefully we don't have to see that.
Yeah,
ever.
That is true.
Yes.
And he did have time to make those punts too. So
Yes.
I'll be curious against, you know, kind of a more athletic team to see if they actually do try to pursue him.
I would love to see him take off and just run some guys over, like, you know, either on a fake punt or because, you know, maybe some guys get through and he has to take off because, I mean, again, AFL, if any of our listeners don't watch Australian rules football, I mean, these guys take a beating. They don't wear helmets. Most of them don't wear helmets. They don't wear pads, and they just kick the crap out of each other constantly. You know, I want to go as far to say is, you know, they may not be tougher than our football players, but they sure don't wear the pads, and they run as hard and they hit as hard. And man, it's crazy.
Well, I think before we head into parting shots, let's go around the room one time here, and I'll give everyone a chance to talk about one thing that they took away as a positive from the game and something they took away as a challenge. I'll just put it that way to improve on. I'll start, give everyone a chance to kind of think about it, and I'm just going to stay in the same position group room here. I'm going to say running back. My positive is Emmett did everything you could possibly want him to do, and I think he had 30 touches, and you know, he was a bell cow in the truest sense, and we need that. We're going to need him this year to be that. Now, maybe the next couple games he can maybe pull back a little bit on some of that. Hopefully he has he gets some bigger runs off against these teams and get some stats there with fewer carries. And now he has 9 days off too between the first game and Akron to heal up any bumps and bruises. But I was really impressed with EJ. And then I think, you know, the challenge right now is literally everyone else in that room behind him. There was nobody that stepped up in that game at the very least. That wasn't the game they were going to get a lot of carries anyways. But nobody made a play that makes you think, okay, that guy now clearly is number 2. And so whether it's Mekhi Nelson or it's Mosey or it's Ives, or, you know, I don't think that picture is any clearer right now. And Dana Holgerson during his press conference pretty much said as much right now too. So every practice is going to be really important for those backups. Rob, I'll go up to you and then we'll go around the room that way. Rob, positive and an area you want to see improve.
I will say the positive is that we won a 1-score game. I know that it got a lot of play on the television while we're there, but I just want to show everyone the original "We Almost Always Almost Win" T-shirt that was created by Shane over there at our forever sponsor Smack and Smooch for me back in 2022. I picked it up while I was driving the cornhole boards out to you guys out there in Lincoln, and somehow that got picked up the minute I put it on the internet and everyone started selling them. But winning a 1-score game, that's huge, against a Power 4 school. That was something that, Honky, I would say that, we are not only 1-0, but we're also 1-0 in games where I hug you in a sigh of relief as soon as the game was over. That interception happened. And I will honestly say that I gave Honky the biggest hug, and it was more like trying not to cry because I was like just relieved. So that was good. That was really good because I feel like that's a monkey off our back. But I want to see them finish drives. I do want to see them finish drives. I don't want to see somebody false start on the 1. I don't want to see drives stalling out when we get, inside the 20. I want to see us get more touchdowns on those drives. And we have the offensive weapons where we should. I felt like some of the play calling, even by Holgerson, who admitted it, kind of stalled out a little bit inside the red zone. And I'm not quite sure why, but, it would be nice to see him just kind of stick with what was working and not try to get away from it. It felt like maybe we went to the pass a couple times too quickly. And just an opinion.
You mentioned the shirt you're wearing. I don't do a good enough job of promoting Smack and Smooch up there, but the Redcast store, we have the QR code up there on the top right. Redcasters, you can go to that Redcast store anytime. We've got hats and shirts, you name it. You want to wear some Redcast gear, go up there, purchase that. But yeah, Shane and Laura there out there, and the good folks at Smack and Smooch, go for it. Boomer.
We've hit a lot of things that I think are positives, already for this team. Just coming out of week one, even with the flaws, special teams were generally a net plus. Ball control was good for the most part. I think the big key for me was winning that turnover battle. Even when you had a fumble, it bounced back to us. Dylan was able to recover. We were able to come up with that big interception late, ended up +2 for the game. I mean, that flips the game, really, if you ask me. I mean, if they was zero, net zero turnovers, I don't know if we win that. And that's been a problem for Nebraska for years. We just haven't been able to win that turnover battle, for how many seasons. It seemed forever. We just whatever reason, the ball just never bounced our way. And that game, it finally did. And, some of that's you're generating those turnovers and just ball awareness and being ready to grab it when it's there. So I think that's a huge plus. And if they can keep that going, the entire season and end up a net positive, that's going to yield, wins. So that's going to equate to wins in the end. Mm-hmm. Things concerned with, a lot of people have the run defense, being concerning. Some of that, I think, like you said, was with the mobile quarterback. I want to see it, further on going forward against some better opponents, see if it holds up. I think the other thing I'd like to see more of, and I kind of addressed this, and some of it was just the nature of the defense Cincinnati was playing, but I'd really like to see some of our wide receivers be able to stretch the field a little more and get open on a deeper pass. That didn't really happen that game. Some of that is first game offense, probably just take what's offered to you and try to make the best of that. But, I think if we see kind of that similar defense going forward against, Big Ten opponents that have better skill overall, I think that could be a problem if those wide receivers can't get separation, from a 3 deep, safety set or be able to stretch that field more, because you can't always count on being able to convert, a 16-play drive into points or to be able to get a drive going that long. We had, 3 drives, over 11 plays or plus, to generate points to win that game. And that's going to be tough to do if you're just picking it up in small chunks going forward. So that's something I really want to see, in the next few games is, are they able to separate themselves, and can we get those bigger plays and stretch the field more? And that should loosen things up for everybody else. It should loosen up the run game and just give Dylan more time. And that's what I really want to see going forward.
Mm-hmm. By the way, there's a neat little feature here. I just noticed for the first time you can turn on the comments to show up on the bottom right here of the screen. So anyways, if you comment, you'll just show up there. So there you go, Redcasters. Abby, take us out of here. You're positive and a thing to work on.
Oh, you guys have taken so many of them. I thought I'll focus. I think there were so many times and I know we had a couple sacks, and so I'm gonna obviously that, but I felt like our pass protection on our O-line looked really good. There were times where it was just a wall, and it was like, well, this is amazing. Dylan's got so much time, and then Dylan making really smart decisions. It felt like with that. So knowing what the coverage looked like, knowing where his guys were, I was really impressed with that he could have tried to balls to the wall. Patrick Mahomes is here. Let's just bomb them deep, whatever. But it seemed like he made really smart plays and really smart checkdowns for the most part. So I think those kind of go well together. I think having that pass protection was really impressive. I think, I don't know, I know it feels like a cop out a little bit, but it felt so much of the offense that we watched felt like last year. And that was a little disappointing. I think not to go Iowa. I think we have to score more points. If we want to win games, we have to score more points. We're not going to win a lot of games scoring 20 points. And I felt like that was kind of what happened last year is our offense kind of got stuck and we didn't score a whole bunch of points and we depended on our defense, which we know it's just not going to be as strong this year. So I guess that's kind of where I would like to see us improve is finishing those drives, scoring more points, those kinds of things. I think we got to focus on that and maybe it's first game jitters, maybe all of that, but that's, yeah. I mean, I think you're looking, yeah, scoring more points. That's what I'd like to see us improve on, which I know everybody wants, but I just think in general we have to raise that average up this season if we want to win games.
Well, points are good, and you never have to apologize for wanting more points. That's for darn sure.
I have a question for you guys. Do you think, I've made my disdain for playing opponents like we're playing in these next few weeks clear of the past. Do you like playing these kind of games next? Do you think we can learn a lot from these next two weeks? Is there a lot we can improve on, or do you think there's a risk that it just masks some issues that we had against Cincinnati going into Michigan? Is that a concern for anyone here?
I will say this, as stressful as this game was, I like that we played a P4 team right out the bat. I like that we did that and other teams didn't. And yeah, maybe our stats don't look as good as other people's, yes, USC's quarterback looks amazing because you played Northwest Missouri State, whatever. So I like that. And I kind of wish we wouldn't, I like a win and we like a big explosive play and all of that. But I'm kind of in that boat where I'm I kind of wish even, I don't know, can we play a Dakota? can we play somebody who is still going to give us that challenge and see how our team reacts to it rather than it just being kind of those cupcake wins? I know they're important for the ecology of college football and all of that, but I think I'm with you, Boomer, where I'm kind of I don't, they're not as fun. They're fun. Don't get me wrong. I love winning, but from a development perspective, I don't know that they tell us much.
See, I think a little bit the opposite, only in that after playing a Power 4, we know some of these guys what they have now, and it's just been a huge confidence builder. And they're going to see an opponent, hopefully like Akron, where they're just going to go out there and eat and just maybe improve on some of the things that they can improve on, right? Work on the fundamentals, work on the little things, and be able to know that they have the talent to just go out there and control the game and be able to work on those things. I mean, would I like to see them play more better opponents? Sure. But are these two games going to be a great opportunity for them to work out the kinks that we saw against that? Sure. Because we've got a big game against Michigan the following week. Right. And,
I'm not concerned about the quality of our schedule. When you're playing USC and at Penn State and Michigan, I always kind of feel you don't have to apologize for much schedule wise. I want to play a couple games like this. Volleyball played Lipscomb, right? You're going to play a game or two where you're able to get more players out there. We talked about, the running back room. We need to get some depth built up. It's hard to do that early in a season, get some young guys out there if you're playing nothing but, the top teams out there. Michigan last week struggled for a while with New Mexico. Now they go and they play at Oklahoma. And then 2 weeks later, they're going to play at Nebraska. I don't know what the right answer is there. I guess we'll know after the game is done. If Michigan beats us up and they say, hey, wow, we benefited by playing Oklahoma, 2 weeks beforehand, that's one thing. If we win the game and we beat Michigan and we sit there and say, hey, we were tested by Cincinnati, and then we had a couple of weeks where we were able to play a bunch of guys and came into this game pretty healthy, hopefully. That's the goal, I think, right now. But you can develop in a lot of different ways, and developing depth is something that these games can create. What I do want to see is I don't want to see steps back. So Abby, you made a great point. I think our pass pro looked really good out there. I think Dylan, took what the defense was giving him quite literally. They were basically playing prevent at times against him, and he would take what they gave him, and he was throwing 78%. So when we go and we play Akron, and if we walk out of that game completing 50% of our plays and they have 6 sacks on us, and we're, there's steps back that you don't want to see happen, irregardless of who the opponent is. But certainly when you're playing these teams that, look, we should win these next 2 games. We absolutely should. It's possible to lose them. We've lost to teams that we never thought we would have lost to before, and we see it every year in college football. It happens. But, I'm fine with this schedule right now, because at the end of the day, we got to get through the next 2 weeks. And after that, it's going to be a brutal Big Ten schedule. It always is. And this Big Ten is a different one now. I mean, now that you're adding USC and those West Coast teams into it, it's a different beast. But
well, except for Northwestern.
Thankfully.
Northwestern.
I guess. And we get them. We do get
I know.
We'll find out, at the end of the season, who is harder, Akron or Northwestern. We'll find that out. But
Did Akron throw 4 interceptions in their game against Wyoming? Because if not, I think we have an answer.
I'm not even sure they threw 4 passes in that game. So yeah.
And
boy.
Tulane. There's a lot of talk at Tulane that they could be the 12th team in the playoff out of all the group of 5. So who knows? But still, not a good look, Northwestern. But that takes us to parting shots. And again, I mean, we'll just repeat it. It's hard to complain right now as a Husker fan, although many of us will, and that don't ever change, Husker Nation. But it's hard to complain. We literally have not lost a game yet in any of our fall sports. So that's a really good start. But Rob, I'm going to start with you here. Give us your parting shots.
Hey, you know what? I just want to say congratulations to Husker Nation for just showing out this entire weekend of the first true weekend of college sports here with volleyball out in Nashville and football out in Kansas City. I've not seen anything like that on what would be a road game, I guess you could call it that. Just traveling around, I've been to lots of different stadiums and professional and college, and that was absolutely amazing. I haven't seen anything like that since we took over Boulder a few years ago. And other than that, I don't really have much. Go Big Red.
And Redcast Abby.
Yeah, just, continue being great fans, go to games, support the volleyball team, support the football team, and for the love of God, take your timeouts because you can't take them with you next week.
Ouch.
And Redcast Boomer.
First thing, I just want to give one of the darker clouds to that game. Janirin Bonner, had an ACL injury and is out for the season. That kind of sucks. That's the stuff you don't want to see. Especially early on in the season, you just feel bad for a guy getting knocked out that very first game of the year. Marty Honke also agrees. So, yep. So, thank you, Marty. Great minds think alike there as far as that goes. And just a non-college sports reminder, as Rob said, if you haven't watched AFL, now's a good time to pick it up. The finals bracket starts, I believe, this Thursday, actually. And if you're an Archie, fan, his team Collingwood is playing, I think they're playing Adelaide, so it's a battle of your Blackbirds there, the Crows versus the Magpies. And granted, you have to be up at 4:40 in the morning to watch that, but you probably have DVRs or something, so go ahead and DVR that. And you could probably escape your workday without being told who won, I'm guessing. So, but it's a good way to start. So get into it and enjoy your AFL. So it is fun to watch.
And I'll end it here with some graphics here we have a wonderful graphic designer, Swobes. And he's created a little Etsy store that has some of the graphics that he's done of the coaches' faces. So I know it's going to be hard for people listening to the show tomorrow, but if you see these graphics, I mean, that they're awesome here, what he's created. And there's also a QR code on here. But basically, do you need
Winning Faces?
What's that?
winningfaces.etsy.com.
Yes. So do you need some fresh wall art for your Husker room? Designer Swobes is selling poster prints featuring portraits of the 2025 Nebraska football coaching staff. Go to winningfaces.etsy.com to order yours, and you can also purchase the original pencil drawings there as well. $50 plus shipping per print. You won't find these anywhere else. That's winningfaces.etsy.com. Order yours today. Support the Redcast. Support
that was a great
graphic
read,
designer
Honky.
Swobes. So
that was a really good read, Honky. I didn't even realize it was a read. I thought you were just kind of remembering to put that up there.
No, I can read. Mama Honky did a good job teaching me that. So anyways, Redcasters, thank you so much for another week of showing up. What a great crowd that we have audience here tonight following us. It's late on a Wednesday or Tuesday night. I'm all messed up with the Labor Day weekend myself, but let's show up proud here. We're going to have a couple of games this weekend, Friday night and Sunday for volleyball. And then Saturday at 6:30 is the Akron game for the football team. We will be back as we are every Tuesday night at 9:00 Central to break down the volleyball, football, and anything else that happens within Husker Nation over that past week. But until then, that's another Go Big Redcast.
Go Big Red.
Herd at Sports Network production.